Hello.
Hello.
Hey. Hi, Sherina. Good
Hello.
morning. For me, it's good morning. For you, it's good afternoon.
Afternoon. It's 3 here.
Everybody here on the live stream, welcome. For you, it may be even night, or if you're watching the replay, say hello to us in the comments and tell us where you're from. So, where you're watching from. So, I'm in Brazil, and Sherina is in Ibiza. And today we'll be talking about mental health in the workplace. My name is Angelique Slop. I am the founder of Hello Monday Club, and we started to do LinkedIn Lives a few months ago, me and my co-host Trevor, because we always had these inspiring conversations about new ways of working, and especially now in global workplace transformations. And we decided to today invite Sherina, who is a psychologist and a specialist in mental health in a hybrid workplace, to join us to talk more so we can share the best insights and make you prepared better for a new world of work. Welcome, Sherina. Can you just introduce yourself in a few minutes?
Yes, thank you for having me here. I'm Sherina. I am a licensed clinical psychologist. And I also work in the online space. So I think we all resonate a lot with this new type of work environment. I also do a lot of personal development workshops and coaching on the side. So basically everything related to mental health and well-being. I'm very passionate about it, and I do see that more and more we need to bring more awareness and kind of help break the stigma in all areas. So in this case, in the companies and in that type of environment, it's always very beneficial to always adapt and be flexible to the changes that the world is having at the same time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so we connected probably over a year ago, and both working online, remote, already like a few years before the pandemic, and also our own experiences and the people we worked with in the remote working space before. We really want to bring that to the table now. If this is more something that's more prevalent in companies and for employees. So I think you had prepared some numbers for us, right? To give
Yes,
a
I
little bit of
did.
paint a picture. So let me add that to the screen.
Yes. So I did want to start off a little bit by sharing some facts because sometimes we're not even aware of how important this topic is, especially not only as individuals, but also in the workplace. So I just want to share with you some facts that I researched and got from some surveys. So basically, in the recent years, there has been an increase in the acknowledgement of mental health and well-being. But there are many surveys, especially after pandemic, that still share how a lot of people are not receiving the right treatment or kind of, in the ignorance, or it's not like as visible. So here are just some facts, like 800, almost 800 million people suffer from mental health disorders worldwide. More than 75% of people with a disorder do not receive any treatment. Every year, close to 3 million people die to substance abuse. An estimated 275 million people suffer from anxiety disorders, and this is a very, very common suffering that many of us have, and a lot of it is just dealt in silence. I think it's very important. And also, most importantly, that after COVID, there has been an increase in mental health struggles. So I think it's important to, again, bring the awareness and learn ways for prevention and treating it. Here I found two charts which just basically show how anxiety and depression have also increased since COVID and after COVID worldwide. So all the light blue are how it has increased in anxiety. And here is the same in depression. So it's it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. So
Yeah.
we do need to pay a lot of attention to this. And so basically, out of all of these, the results were that through COVID-19, about 30% of employed adults have taken a leave of absence. 56% of people have experienced an increase in anxiety around job security. As we know, things have been very unstable, not very stable for many of us. So there's a lot of worry and anxiety towards their job positions and how the new work environment is all about. 55% found changes in their work routines and organization quite stressful. Many of us now work from home, alone, no work colleagues. We don't have to go to a place. We don't have the same work environment as before. So we need to adapt to these new changes. Almost half of all surveyed felt lonely or isolated when working from home. And more than 40% said that their productivity fell and it was hard to get work done from at home. I have researched, and there also has been the contrary. Some people have um, found benefits from working at home. They have managed themselves pretty well. So it's not the whole population, but there's both sides to it. It's just really learning how to adapt better habits,
Exactly.
better routines, how to organize yourself. So that had to be said. And this was another survey basically asking the questions of before, like if there was an increase in anxiety, if there's stress, if there's difficulties balancing work and life after COVID, how is it working from home? And so basically these were the results of this survey, where from the start of the pandemic, 49% of employees reported having less energy for non-work activities. So there has been a hard time doing things with people, like, or activities that are just for
Yeah.
fun or travel or meeting friends, socializing. 42% say that they have less interest in socializing with friends. It has been very hard when we're like at home and we're just in our little, in isolation mainly. 42% have more trouble sleeping, and 33% more alcohol or substance abuse than usual. So I think it's pretty clear that we have had an impact in many areas of our life that, we should bring the awareness and be flexible. And so my last slide here is just a little bit of the solutions that I would see, which is basically providing mental health awareness, raising activities into companies and individuals to promote mental health and well-being, but also for prevention. So,
Mhm.
giving people the education and the space to learn about these tools to prevent and support all of these challenges. So yeah,
Yes. Yeah. So thank you.
yeah.
Well, um, I can relate to what you say. I'm still actually impressed or shocked by the numbers, like the high percentages that I saw. So both you and me, we worked already remotely before, often from home, but also maybe from cafes or co-working spaces. And for us, maybe the my lifestyle didn't really change that much compared to, like, of course, many other people. I've not been in a very strict lockdown as that have been around in the world, for example, where you were in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do really recognize this pandemic has had an effect on me. um, just the now things are getting back a little bit more to events and socializing. I kind of like feel a little bit anxious, not even like going to like a concert, but there's going to be an event next week in the co-working space, and I'm like, I don't really hang out for work.
Yeah.
And so I noticed that. So it is about sleep, and it is about like the taking care of our health. Well, we should have been taking care better of our health, but maybe that pressure. So I think the common fear, the changes, I definitely relate to it. And maybe companies and individuals underestimate the effect that this whole more than 2 years have had on us. And then on top of that, and that is something I really want to elaborate a little bit more on, looking to the future, is that we found this numbers almost 50% suffered because of working from home. Well, we also have a lot of proof that people say, well, I just didn't really like it. I don't want to go back to the office full time. We have, of course, I miss the social context, but the commute and the daily stress that I experienced before, I also don't want to go back to. I'm more productive. I have more time for my family. So there's all those advantages, and they exist, and it is about leveraging the advantages and supporting people and companies to move to that transformation, towards that transformation, and it takes time. So if you have a hybrid policy in place that says, well, you can work from home 2 days a week or 3 days a week, or you can decide for yourself. It's not just, this is the policy and that's it. We now need to go into this phase wherein we support people, and individuals need to learn. And we have had conversations before, Serena, where we talked about it is about the freedom that you have, it is really need to relearn how to function, get understanding about how you work best, when you work best, where you work best, and combine that, put it way more in the context of personal well-being and other activities. So that whole balance, and I'm still learning it, and so it's like
So am I.
yeah, we are like 8 years. Like I'm 8 years. You're probably something like that as well. Not working in an office in a corporate structure, and it means that within that non structure, we really need to learn, relearn what is best for us, and it's going to be an interesting journey. And we really want to emphasize that and ask your attention. If you're an HR, if you're CEO, if you're a team leader, but also if you're an employee, and to understand that. So I've prepared some questions for you. So what would you say is the main difference between being co-located and being in the hybrid, more hybrid setup that affects the mental health of employees? Serena.
Well, I guess in the end, it's also you have more responsibility on your own to decide. You're not in a fixed structure in a place where, just follow kind of like the structure and the norms. In this case, you have this kind of ability or like responsibility to manage yourself by yourself. Like, when are you most efficient? When are you having the breaks? Like, you're kind of in a complete, I feel it's more this responsibility because you're managing yourself and you're not like you're not placed in a structure. At the same time, it also gives us a lot of flexibility and freedom to find what best works for you. So there are people who are very productive in the mornings and some people are more productive after lunch. So it's really figuring out what best works for you so you can be super productive and efficient when it's best for you. So again, this like learning how to manage yourself in this aspect. And also I think communication in this aspect is quite important, mainly because maybe you're not located in the same place and you have to figure out with your team or your employees or your managers like how you want to communicate best any struggles that are within the work scene.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, and I think so. What we like to do is to say, because we can basically distinguish four levels of people that could have a different role in providing or increasing the mental health in the workplace. And mental health well-being, I think, is kind of the same thing. Of course, a mental health problem is something else than employee well-being, but I think we can what we're going to say applies for both. And first of all, I want to say what is the employee, and then we have maybe also colleagues, the role of HR and the top management, so CEOs. So we just kind of work through those layers bottom up. So
Mm-hmm.
first of all, as you say, we have to learn that we have to learn as employees, and that is also like in whatever role you are in the organization. Maybe I'm indeed more productive in the morning and then also have another slot in the evening that I'm really productive. It means that we need to understand who we are, what our personal circumstances is, and we have to take responsibility for that. I think that's a big shift
Yeah.
into that understanding. So employees need to step up, talk to their colleagues, talk to
Yeah.
their team leads, and get help and say, okay, I struggle with structure, for example. And then I will say, then it's not the solution is not, oh, then you can come back to in 9 to 5 to solve that. No, we have to find out what is the structure, how can we provide this person working more remotely, with bringing more structure into their days. So, yeah,
Yeah.
what is your experience with that?
Yeah, I think there's also a need exactly of like personalized working hours or personalized environment because not everything works for everyone. So eventually, if you're a big company with a lot of employees, it's kind of difficult to have a very personal, but at least have flexibility and let the employee also suggest what best works for them, knowing what their objectives are, their work intentions and stuff like this, but kind of having that flexibility to adapt and figure out the best way of being efficient and productive. Um,
Mhm.
because again, a lot of things have changed and we all have to unlearn to learn again or readapt to this new environment. And also, it's something really good for some people, as some people have found it more beneficial for, some people have really well organized themselves at home. They've created a space. They found a way to make it work out even better than going to the office. So yeah, I think
And also here
flexibility.
I want to distinguish between, so there is the office, and there is the home office, and what I miss in the narrative is everything in between.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of co-working spaces because they provide like a working environment that has all the facilities and kind of a working vibe, but still you don't have to commute and you don't have necessarily colleagues that distract you. So I've been doing a lot of my work in the co-working space lately. And yesterday I walked into this nice concept store that is in my street, and it has a little cafe with a really nice view on the bay. And I was like, oh yeah, I actually still have an article to write, so it would be really good for me. So I schedule like a few hours to go sit there in the end of the afternoon with a nice coffee and watch the sunset. So that will just give me like a totally different vibe. It
Yeah.
takes away stress. And we have the freedom within, of course, the security and the limits that our organization offer us. But these kind of working arrangements, they should be on the agenda, should be encouraged to look in different places. Some people want to have a home office in a shed in the backyard, and some people say really want to go to a hub where I can actually work and connect with people in a personal level. So there are all those different needs, and they change all the time as well. So it's really, you have to kind of check in with yourself all the time what you need. And it really starts there, and figure that out. And it's a journey, and it's fun, and you can just say, okay, I actually tried that working in a cafe and I loved it.
Yeah. I do this as well.
Yeah.
Usually my sessions, I do them like at home because I need a private place, but many other times I've been in a cafe or in a co-working space and just feel other people doing their things as well. Maybe you have a little break and connect with someone. It's just really trying to blend in the work life kind of thing because it's possible now. And again, that flexibility for everyone to also figure out on their own what best works for them, and ask
And I
for
want to
this.
say, yeah, location matters. So the physical, even we work online, but our physical location matters. So I also, if you want to get more academic, I have a PhD study on that. So people just drop me a line, I can send it to you. Also want to talk about a little bit, and not going to go into asynchronous working a lot because we have been talking a lot about it, but this is a good moment to go into the role of the manager and the team. So if we have decided, this whole knowledge that we have from ourselves as employees, and of course then we need to express our needs and come to arrangements with our team and our manager. So what do you say is the role of the manager, and what is different in this new situation?
Yeah, I think more than ever, managers should receive education on prevention. So the manager should be able to maybe observe their employees and be able to recognize signs of burnouts or overwhelming, overload of work or stress, anxiety and stuff like this within their team. Just because, well, yeah, they're the managers and they should, place this attention or offer this safe space within their company, even if their employees are working remotely or at home or some partially like come in some days and some not, but at least be observant of this and be able to read the signs before there is an actual burnout or a leave because of stress or something. And nowadays I know that there are a lot of people delivering these programs and stuff to managers to teach them like what are the signs, what to do, how can we prevent people getting into these challenges or these struggles. I would also say it also depends on how big your company is, but a lot of individual conversations, doesn't have to be like a whole hour, but every now and then have a little close relationship with your employees, because we all need to feel like that I'm seen there, that there is a dialogue, that I'm part of this, and kind of feel like, okay, I'm part of this company, even if I'm working from home. And a lot of emphasis also on communication, because people are not all the time in their office anymore. And there's so many changes. People want to be updated with what's going on, the situation of the company, the values of the company, what are the objectives, the intentions. So there should be really good communication and a close communication from managers to their employees. So everyone's kind of knows where the company's at, what the values are, what the objectives are, that there is an attention to mental health, that there is a space where they can go to, there are resources available for them, so people don't just keep things for themselves, because this is what often happens. Like, it has nothing to do with work, it's my personal stuff, but eventually it will affect and impact your work. It will affect the connection with your colleagues, with your team. So I would say this: prevention, conversations, and communication.
Yes, and also I want to add to that that is not just for the direct team lead.
Yeah.
I think obviously also colleagues and interactions should be alert, and there should be safe space where people can say, look, I'm not sure. Like, I just see that you seem kind of stressed lately. Are you okay? Are you sleeping well? So I think that should be the safe space to create. A more structured approach to this is what I understood a few years ago when I interviewed Buffer, which is a fully remote company that has been fully distributed for many years. So what they had in place is a kind of a buddy system where you would have a buddy that you would have a cup of coffee with once a week. So this person would kind of like see and be able to see not necessarily a teammate, so it could be just somebody else. And but they also, and they were just like, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? How is your private life? And just have that level of chat. As a friend, almost being alert on if people are okay. And they had a more formalized people manager. I don't know if it was the name, but they had one person that was kind of like, you could call it the well-being manager, somebody that would just check in. And it was their dedicated role, like around 80 people around that time. So that person would just check in on a regular basis with everybody in the company and discuss, like, how you doing, how's your work, how's your work-life balance, how's your workload, how's your relationship with your manager, just all those people manager things. And especially in a lot of innovative companies where maybe the team lead has a very technological background and is very focused on the results, the collaboration, the objectives. So, and that might not be the same profile as the well-being manager that goes more onto that soft side. So I think we should distinguish to all those different roles. And of course, because the roles could be very different, we should maybe rethink that manager role and not put all the responsibility there. And also when I look at what is the because an interesting question is whole for mental health well-being. I think it goes both ways. So while in hybrid working, the division between work and life is more blurry. It also means that the responsibility of the manager goes further. So, you would be, I find it more relevant now to say, hey, are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? What does your daily structure look like? And before you were kind of like, well, what I do after 5 o'clock, I'm not going to
It's
explain
not
to
your
you.
business.
And now it is more like it gets more relevant, and at the same time the employee also has more responsibility to come back and to say, hey, I'm taking this responsibility, I'm taking my afternoon off because I need to refresh, I want to go to the beach for a long walk, but I'll check in with you on Monday, and then we discuss this thing. And I'm sure, so that kind of empowerment, while the joint responsibility, the overlap is getting higher.
Yeah. That's why I feel that the manager has to have a really good communication skills to be able to share the values and objectives and where the company's going or what the work has to be, so everyone knows, everyone's kind of at the same place and know what they have to do, know what the intentions are, know what the values of the company are, and then from there have this flexibility to rearrange their schedule. It's not a bad idea that people create their own schedule and then share it, like, this is how I'm going to do it, and kind of get the okay and do it their way, how they need it. That does works a lot. Also, what you were mentioning earlier about having like a buddy, there are some companies who also do like group meetings every now and then to discuss different things, or they also have anonymous platforms where they kind of like share if they have any struggle or what's going on and stuff like this. So there are many ways to kind of get the group together every once in a while and just talk about these things that are not 100% related to the work itself, but eventually impact the work environment.
Yes. So another statistic, within the next 3 years, we've got Generation Z. Within 3 years, it will be around 20 to 25% of the workforce. So a lot of companies are now hiring the eldest Generation Z, which is like people from 20 to 23. So graduates, recently graduates that are entering the labor market. They have never worked in the old normal, and they have also different views on work-life balance, on mental health, and their expectations of their companies. So, what can you tell us about that, Serena?
Yeah, I think they are very much into like equality and diversity and like everything. It's a generation where everything is like possible because they haven't learned the old structure, which is still sometimes there because they're probably influenced by their elders or they've kind of seen it, but now everything is possible. They do have also the feeling of belonging. So like they are very, very into like racism, equality, diversity. Everything's kind of they pay a lot of attention to this, a lot of focus on their well-being and where they're at, who they're around, their colleagues, and really looking for their well-being. Especially also they're the generation of like technology and social media and like all these platforms. So on one hand, it's quite positive because they do have access and they're more familiar with all these platforms that they can use to work on their goals or find calmness or practice mindfulness or yoga, or kind of like they're more connected in that sense. But also it's tricky because it's very not a solo thing, but they don't have the same discipline maybe that the old structure has of like fixed hours, working all of this. Like we usually think like you have to work 8 hours or 10. They are more a generation of as long as I'm doing what I have to do when I finish in 3 hours, then that's what matters, kind of thing.
Exactly, and that was even before that was relevant, because also our first entry jobs, if they came from university, they were used to that autonomous working environment,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
suddenly they needed to be in this factory style, like time and space
yeah.
force. So I think for this generation, that's even more. Um, Autonomy, high autonomy, empowering your employees, and making sure that they can work when they want is that was already very, very important for knowledge workers. For if we add this generation that looks really much at values, that have a high emphasis on their own well-being, mental health conversations are normalized, where that was more like in my generation,
Like
it's
taboo.
basically taboo.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's a generation that actually expects managers to take care of their well-being
yeah,
and
yeah,
support them in their work-life integration.
yeah.
So if we take all that into account, then we can now look at the HR department and the people function to see how they can facilitate that in change. So what do you have a best practice of companies? Do you see what is the direction or the best interventions or policies that HR can adapt to facilitate all this?
Yeah, and I think now more than ever, it's becoming a big thing now. HR are very focused on providing programs. So what I have seen is like companies are ready to give their employees like short workshops on different topics like resilience, effective communication, emotional intelligence, like better habits, to kind of continuously promote this well-being and mental health. Also, they do like team buildings or like incentives like this to kind of bring the team together and feel that connect with one another, create this closeness, so again they can have a support system when
Mhm.
they're working and they're connected in a different environment, doing activities together, learning a new skill together is really nice. And also again all these like creating these anonymous groups or constantly creating these group meetings where people can connect after work, during work. Also emphasizing on little breaks, like always having these little incentives where they're going for an activity or learning something different, have someone as a speaker sharing something that could benefit them in a related topic. So I think HR, they are responsible and they are actually doing a lot of this, trying to look for programs or workshops or activities that cover all of these things, like feeling connected, having a support system, kind of having that space for people to come up to them and also share like what works for them, what schedule works for them, their working hours, and also have that safe space for people to also share if they're feeling a bit low, and have the flexibility to, maybe you need, go rest at home, or maybe you need a little bit of this and just maybe work less these hours, or maybe take some work off this time, or maybe distribute your work with someone else, kind of figuring out like the personal experience as well.
Yes. Yeah, and I want to add to that, because those initiatives, those programs are all very, very good. But there's a pitfall to that in organizations, and is that is like, okay, we did a connection workshop, we did a team building, but it's not just that. We also have to really rethink structure, culture, management styles, level of empowerment of our employees. So that goes further than just adding like some activity on a very team activity individual level, although important. We it's definitely, if you only do that, then you will be in a becoming into a danger zone, because if we look at all those expectations and the needs and what is important, we have to be, and I introduced it I think last week, we have to think about our hybrid identity, and it could be fully remote, it could be like a very nice mixture. But it doesn't mean, what does it mean, like how is our relationship with our employees, what do we expect from them in terms of responsibility, how can we facilitate our team leads, and do we maybe have to rethink management structure, like the whole management function, the job descriptions, and create something very different. What is the example that I as an HR director or my colleague as a CEO is setting? So if I am as an HR director working 12 hours a day and sending emails, I might want to say to everybody, your work life balance is very, very important. But if I'm not leading by example, I might create that peer pressure that I don't want to create. So that
Yeah.
intention, rethinking, but also driving change, that is more difficult, because it's, to be honest, it's very, very easy to buy a course, an online course about mental health, or to do a team lead activity. It's something you can do. You can decide today and you have it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
rethinking work and driving that long-term organizational change is something else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is creating the new organization. That context, you also do deliberately the activities that help,
Yeah.
that support your
Of course,
employees.
yeah. And I think for this, a lot of people send surveys to their employees, like the HR sent, to know exactly where the struggle is, what could help them, what they're looking for. Like, is it the productivity, or is it more and based on this, maybe have a program where they're all going through to see if everyone's adapting to these new changes in organization or workflow. But I feel like what's needed a lot is the constant communication with the employee, like always keeping them close, engaging with them, kind of making them part of all these decisions, as well as they're the ones experiencing these new changes.
Yeah, and definitely, and it's definitely also empowerment on team level, and creating that flexibility of in your organizational context broad enough so people can create their own experience. And it's not a one size fits all approach, but if you give people a lot of space, you're holding space for a lot of different people and different individual needs as well. So that's quite interesting. We are almost at the end. What would you say, Sherina, what would you leave any CEO who is watching this, and who is leading the ship as the captain, and has all those people that um, that might experience mental health problems, or have difficulties adapting, or might not have leveraged like the full advantages of the hybrid workspace? What kind of message would you leave for them?
Yeah, I would say, like, empathy and awareness. because we're not always aware, like especially because we all have different goals and perspectives and objectives. It's hard to resonate or connect with all the people working in a company. So I feel that the founder, the CEO, is the one who kind of has to, kind of like you were saying, like give this example or show this interest and attention towards this matter, towards mental health. So trying to have these surveys or trying to get to know the employees where they're at, this closeness and this communication, I think it starts here, right? Because that's the example that the managers will get, the HR will get, the employees will get, and people will be more comfortable knowing that there is an environment where it is safe to talk about mental health or struggles or challenges, and it's not just work objective related, but there's also this personal, eventually having boundaries there, but that there is that people can feel comfortable sharing this without the fear of, I'm going to get fired because I'm not as if I'm low today or I'm not as productive today, but actually having the space of what's going on. Let's kind of together support you in that sense and see what we can do or what can work for you, and kind of this, just that empathy and awareness. I'd say it all starts from there.
Exactly. Yeah, it starts from there. So I would invite leadership teams to maybe take some time and think about what now, I think that the focus has been very operational, and first crisis, and now more like how do we make the operations work in this new setting? What's happening? What is the observing the behavior of employees? How do they adapt? But I think now it would be a good time to start looking at the future and say, okay, let's be very intentional. What kind of organization do we want? Yeah, we this is like, as people care about each other, where we give space, where we meet their needs, where we are empowering our employees, where we create a space where they can show up, and we encourage them to do their best work in a way that makes them thrive. And if that is the company that we want to create, then we have to ask ourselves, are we willing to do the mindset work that it takes from ourselves? So the mindset work that it takes from a leadership perspective to actually start driving that change to an organization that is more based on trust and empowerment and psychological safety. If you're not there in the way you want, it means that there needs to be changes in the top, and then of course together with the rest, and by listening to your employees, you can create it.
Yeah. And I think again, it's placing the attention to the whole team, being the reference as well, and making sure that people have the resources that, because in the end, it's when the employee is happy and is satisfied because the person receives the attention they need, and they're not just to get the work done. The environment changes, the values change, the atmosphere changes. Everyone kind of is at the same mindset and flow, which is what we need to get a project going forward or a whole team moving forward in the same direction. And because there's so many changes outside and inside, we just all need to adapt together. But, eventually a leader is someone who is already living this way or adapting to these changes, and the people follow this because it's, so I guess the CEOs, managers have to be like those leaders that everyone wants to kind of adapt to as well.
Yes, I totally agree, and that's a really good point. So we are going to the end. I would really also, we have a topic that is more or less related next week. Next week we have another guest, Magnus Wood, who is a specialist with about kindness in the workplace, and he will be talking to Trevor, who is very, very interested in the concept of wisdom, advisor leadership. So that will be if you're, especially if you're in leadership and you are looking to create higher well-being, it would definitely recommend for you to check in with us next week at the same time. So the replays of these events are available on our LinkedIn and our YouTube channel, both of them, Hello Monday Club. Contact and be invited. You get like a little ping in your a mailbox about the events and other things that we organize. Then I recommend to sign up for Hello Monday Weekly and our website. Any questions for me? If you want to reach out, if you want to connect with Sherina, reach out with questions for her. If you want to know what either we can do on an organizational development point of view, or if you're looking into more practical programs for team leads, just drop me a line and we will be getting back to you. Sherina, it was really lovely to have you.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that we got to explore a little bit more of this subject together. Um, and yeah, we'll see each other. We'll stay in touch.
Yes, we will. Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.